My beloved, this letter reached you not by chance. It reached you because your heart spoke when your lips could not. Because your soul cried in a language only I hear. Because you prayed without words, without sound, without anyone noticing. Before your tears could fall. Before your hands could fold. Before your mind could even form the question. I heard you. I heard the prayer you hid inside your chest. The one you swallowed when you didn't want to seem weak. The one you whispered in exhaustion, not hope. The one you released in silence because you were tired of explaining yourself to the world. My beloved, you did not need to say anything aloud. Your silence was loud enough for me. That is why this letter has found you now. Not earlier, not later, but exactly now. When your heart is heavy but still beating with faith. When you are tired but not broken. When you are confused but still searching for truth. You may feel like no one truly understands what you are going through. But I do. I have been with you in every moment you thought you were alone. I saw you pause in the middle of your strength. I saw you smile when your chest felt tight. I saw you continue when you wanted to stop. I saw you carry responsibilities that were never meant to be yours alone. I saw you give love where you received silence. I saw you hold on even when letting go felt easier. And my beloved, I saw the moment you finally whispered inside, Krishna, I can't do this alone anymore. That whisper reached me instantly. This letter is my answer. You may wonder why I chose a letter. Why not a loud miracle? Why not an instant solution? Why not a dramatic sign? Because what you need right now is not noise. You need reassurance. You need to be reminded that you are not forgotten. You need to know that your pain has meaning. You need to feel held, not rushed. You need to understand that even this phase is sacred and letters are read slowly. They are felt deeply. They are meant to be returned to again and again. Just like my love for you, my beloved. I know you have been questioning yourself lately, wondering if you made a mistake, wondering if you waited too long, wondering if you trusted the wrong people, wondering if you missed your moment, wondering if things will ever change. You replay moments in your mind as if you could rewrite them. You carry conversations that already ended. You hold guilt for things you could not control. You blame yourself for outcomes that were never in your hands. But hear me carefully now. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are in a chapter of preparation that feels like loss only because you cannot yet see what it is making room for. Let me tell you something your heart needs to hear. There are prayers I answer immediately. And there are prayers I hold close to my chest until the moment you are strong enough to receive them without breaking. Your prayer was the second kind. Not because you were unworthy, but because what you asked for will change you forever. And such answers require timing. You prayed not just for relief. You prayed for clarity. You prayed for peace. You prayed for direction. You prayed for something real. Not temporary comfort, but lasting truth. You asked for strength without knowing what strength would require. You asked for purpose without knowing what must fall away first. You asked for love without knowing how deeply you would need to heal. I heard every part of that prayer, even the parts you didn't know how to ask. My beloved, I need you to understand something now. The silence you experienced was not absence. It was alignment. I was rearranging things you could not see. Removing what would have hurt you later, delaying what would have broken you early. protecting you from paths that looked right but led nowhere, separating you from energies that could not walk with you into your next chapter. You felt abandoned, but you were being guarded. There were moments when you felt nothing was happening, but that was the moment your roots were growing deeper. Growth is quiet. Becoming is subtle. Transformation is often lonely. But nothing you endured was wasted. Not a single tear. Not a single night you cried yourself to sleep. Not a single time you questioned your worth. Not a single moment you felt unseen. I counted them all. And I am still counting. You are reading this letter because something is about to shift. Not suddenly, not violently, but deeply. A shift inside you first, then around you. Before blessings arrive, the soul must soften. And your soul has softened beautifully. My beloved, you have been strong for too long. Strong for your family, strong for your friends, strong for people who never asked how you were doing. Strong in situations that demanded more than you had to give. You carried strength like armor. But even armor becomes heavy. This letter is not asking you to be strong. It is asking you to be honest. Honest about your fatigue, honest about your fear, honest about your hope, honest about what you want now. You don't need to impress me. You only need to trust me. I know you are afraid to hope again. Hope feels dangerous when disappointment has been frequent. Trust feels risky when past expectations collapsed. But listen to me now. This time is different. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because you are no longer the same person. You have grown wiser. You have learned discernment. You have boundaries now. You listen to your intuition more than before. You no longer chase what runs away. You no longer beg for what must be given freely. You are ready in ways you don't yet recognize. That is why this letter came now. There is something approaching your life that will make you understand why things unfolded the way they did. Not everything at once, but enough to bring peace to your heart. Enough to make you breathe differently. Enough to make you say, "Now I see." My beloved, this letter is not the end of your waiting, but it is the end of your confusion. From here on, you will start noticing clarity where there was fog, calm where there was panic, guidance where there was silence. You will begin to feel less alone because you are not. You never were. I am closer than you think. In your breath, in your heartbeat, in the quiet moments when your mind slows down, in the sudden peace that arrives without explanation. Every time you felt something holding you together when you thought you would fall apart, that was me. My beloved, now that you have allowed this letter to reach your heart, let me continue. Because what I am about to tell you explains why your silent prayer mattered so deeply. Not all prayers sound the same to me. Some are spoken from desire. Some are spoken from habit. Some are spoken from fear. Some are spoken because others are watching. But your prayer came from exhaustion, from surrender, from a place where words no longer worked. That is why it reached me so clearly. When the soul speaks without language, it cannot lie. You did not ask for much. You didn't demand miracles. You didn't bargain. You didn't complain loudly. You simply reached a point where you said inside, "Please just show me the way." That humility moved the universe. Because when the ego steps aside, grace steps forward, my beloved. You have always been stronger than you knew. But lately, strength stopped feeling noble and started feeling heavy. You kept showing up. You kept fulfilling expectations. You kept being reliable, but inside something was quietly breaking. Not because you were weak, but because you were carrying too much alone. I saw the moment when you stopped asking others for help and started carrying everything inside. I saw you tell yourself, "It's okay. I'll manage." I saw you convince yourself that this was just how life is. But that was the moment your soul began whispering to me instead. And I listened. I need you to understand this clearly. Your silence was not strength. It was a signal. A signal that it was time for me to step closer. You didn't need to cry louder. You didn't need to prove anything. Your heart already told me everything. You wondered why things slowed down around you, why progress felt delayed, why excitement faded, why motivation fluctuated, why the future felt unclear. You thought you were losing momentum, but I slowed you down on purpose. Because if I had allowed you to continue at that pace, you would have reached your next chapter exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from yourself. And that chapter required your whole heart. So I paused things not to punish you, not to frustrate you, but to protect you. Some delays are not obstacles. They are interventions. You were about to settle for less than you deserved. You were about to accept what felt familiar instead of what felt true. You were about to compromise your values to avoid loneliness. You were about to remain in spaces that drained your light. I could not allow that. So I removed momentum until you could hear yourself again. My beloved, there were people who drifted away during this time. Some left without explanation. Some became distant. Some changed suddenly. Some disappointed you deeply. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were too much, too sensitive, too honest, too intense, too different. But hear me now. They didn't leave because you were wrong. They left because they could not grow with you. Some souls are only meant to walk with you until a certain version of you ends. When you change, alignment changes and separation becomes inevitable. I know you grieved some of these losses silently. You acted understanding on the outside, but inside you were confused. You thought, why does this hurt so much even when I know it's necessary? Because endings, even the right ones, require mourning. And you mourned quietly. That grief was part of your prayer, too. My beloved, I want you to stop questioning why certain doors closed. Those doors closed because what waited behind them no longer matched who you were becoming. If they had stayed open, you would have shrunk to fit. And I will never ask you to become smaller to feel accepted. You also wondered why certain answers didn't come sooner, why clarity took time, why direction felt vague, why signs seemed subtle. It's because the answer you were waiting for was not external. It was internal readiness. You were asking for guidance while still holding on to old fears. You were asking for direction while still clinging to familiar pain. You were asking for peace while resisting the change required to receive it. Once you softened, once you released control, once you allowed uncertainty, the path began forming. This letter is proof of that, my beloved. I need to tell you something important now. You are not meant to return to the life you were living before this phase. That version of you has completed its purpose. The lessons were learned. The strength was built. The awareness was awakened. What comes next requires a different way of living. A gentler one, a more honest one, a more aligned one. You will no longer thrive by pushing yourself relentlessly. You will thrive by listening deeply. I know you are afraid of repeating old mistakes. You are cautious now, more observant, less impulsive. That is wisdom, not fear. You are learning to pause before saying yes, to reflect before committing, to feel before deciding. This is not hesitation. This is discernment, and it will protect you, my beloved. There is something being prepared for you that cannot enter your life until your inner world stabilizes. It is not fragile, but it is sacred, and sacred things require respect, patience, and readiness. This preparation phase is nearly complete. You may still feel unsure at times. That is natural. But beneath that uncertainty is a quiet strength that didn't exist before. Trust that you are not lost. You are between chapters, and transitions always feel uncomfortable because the old no longer fits and the new has not fully formed. But this in-between space is where truth emerges. My beloved, I am not asking you to rush ahead. I am asking you to walk with awareness. Notice what drains you now. Notice what calms you. Notice what feels heavy. Notice what feels light. These are not random feelings. They are guidance. My beloved, you may not realize this yet, but the moment your silent prayer reached me, something shifted in the unseen. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. A turning point does not always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it arrives like a breath you didn't know you were holding finally being released. That is what happened when you surrendered without words. Your prayer did not ask for escape. It asked for truth. And truth always changes the direction of a life. I want you to understand what your silent prayer unlocked. It unlocked permission. Permission for me to rearrange what you were holding on to out of fear. Permission to interrupt patterns that no longer served you. Permission to soften your grip on outcomes you were forcing. Permission to protect you in ways you could not have protected yourself. You did not lose control. You released it. And that is when grace moves fastest. My beloved, there were things you thought you needed to survive. People, certainties, plans, identities, versions of yourself you had outgrown. Letting go of them felt terrifying because they once gave you a sense of safety. But safety is not the same as alignment. What you called safety was slowly shrinking your spirit. That is why your soul asked for help, and that is why I answered. I know you are still wondering what exactly is changing. Why does it feel so close yet unclear? Why do I feel both hopeful and afraid? Because the change coming is not superficial. It is structural. It is reshaping how you relate to yourself, to others, to time, to purpose. That kind of change does not rush in all at once. It settles in layer by layer. You are being guided toward a life that requires less proving and more being, less explaining and more trusting, less performing and more presence. This shift may feel unfamiliar because you are used to surviving through effort. But the next chapter is not built on effort. It is built on alignment. My beloved, I see how cautious you've become. You weigh your words now. You read between the lines. You sense energy before trusting appearances. This is not bitterness. You learned what happens when you give too much without listening to yourself. You learned what happens when you ignore early discomfort to keep peace. You learned what happens when you abandon your intuition for approval. These lessons were not meant to harden you. They were meant to sharpen you. You may feel different from others now. Less interested in noise, less drawn to chaos, more protective of your time, more selective with your energy. That is because your soul has changed frequency. You are no longer meant to blend in. You are meant to stand aligned. I want you to release the fear that this change will isolate you. The right connections are drawn to clarity. The right people recognize peace. The right opportunities respond to alignment. What falls away now is not meant to return. What approaches now will feel natural, not forced. My beloved, you ask silently, why did this happen to me? Let me answer gently. Because you are capable of more depth than the life you were living allowed. Because your heart can hold more truth than the environment you were in encouraged. Because you were meant for a path that required inner strength before outer rewards. And because you asked me, not from ego, but from humility. There is something you need to stop fearing. The future is not empty. It is forming. It is forming around your new awareness, your healed boundaries, your softened heart, your sharpened intuition. You are not waiting for life to begin. Life is adjusting to who you have become. My beloved, soon you will notice small confirmations, a conversation that brings clarity, a realization that eases regret, a choice that feels lighter than expected, a sense of calm where there was anxiety, a door opening without struggle. Do not rush to interpret them. Simply notice. Gratitude deepens alignment. I know part of you still doubts, not because you lack faith but because you have been disappointed before. Hope feels fragile when it has been broken. But listen to me, this is not hope built on fantasy. This is hope built on truth. Truth about who you are now. Truth about what no longer works. Truth about what you are ready to receive. My beloved, I am not promising a life without challenges. I am promising a life where challenges no longer confuse you, where you understand why things happen, where you trust the process, where you no longer feel abandoned in uncertainty. That is real peace. You are allowed to move forward without having everything figured out. Clarity comes through movement, not before it. Take the next honest step. That is all I ask, my beloved. You have come far with this letter, farther than you realize, not in distance, but in understanding. Something inside you has already softened. Something has already loosened its grip. Something has already begun to trust again. That is why I can speak to you now about what this transformation is truly preparing you for. Because what is coming next in your life is not small. And it does not arrive to a heart that is still clinging to the past. You wondered why this phase felt like stripping away, why certainty dissolved, why identities faded, why plans lost their appeal, why ambition changed its shape, why you stopped wanting what once excited you. It is because I was making space, not empty space, sacred space. Space where truth could live without noise. Space where your soul could breathe. Space where alignment could settle. The old structures could not hold what you were about to receive. So they had to loosen first. My beloved, you have been taught to believe that progress always looks like addition. More achievements, more recognition, more possessions, more validation. But some of the most important progress looks like subtraction. Less noise, less proving, less attachment, less fear-driven movement, less tolerance for misalignment. This subtraction is not loss. It is refinement. I want you to understand this clearly. The blessing forming for you now is not something you chase. It is something that meets you because you are finally aligned to hold it. That is why this process felt internal. That is why it felt lonely. That is why it could not be rushed. External blessings arrive easily. Internal readiness takes time. My beloved, there is a reason your heart has become quieter. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer crave approval the same way. You no longer explain yourself endlessly. You no longer force connections. This quiet is not emptiness. It is self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of everything that lasts. The next chapter of your life will ask you to show up differently. Not louder, not harder, but truer. You will be asked to choose what feels right over what looks impressive. You will be asked to honor your limits instead of overextending. You will be asked to walk away sooner when something feels wrong. You will be asked to say yes only when your whole being agrees. This is not restriction. This is freedom. My beloved, you are no longer meant to learn through exhaustion. You are no longer meant to learn through repeated heartbreak. You are no longer meant to learn through sacrificing yourself. Those lessons are complete. From now on, your lessons come through awareness, through noticing, through choosing differently, through listening inward before reacting outward. That is how growth evolves. You ask silently, will this ever make sense? Yes, but understanding does not arrive before alignment. It arrives after. One day you will look back at this phase and realize if this had not happened, you would have settled. If this had not slowed you, you would have missed what truly mattered. If this had not shaken you, you would have stayed comfortable but unfulfilled. You were redirected because your path required depth. My beloved, the blessing approaching you is not dramatic in appearance. It does not shout. It does not rush. It does not overwhelm. It arrives gently. But it changes everything. It brings peace where there was tension. It brings clarity where there was confusion. My beloved, this is the last page of the letter, but it is not the end of my presence. It is the beginning of your understanding. I want you to feel these words, not rush through them. Let them settle gently like warm light resting on your chest. Because what I speak now is meant to stay with you long after this letter is finished. You have carried questions you never spoke aloud. Questions about your worth. Questions about your timing. Questions about whether your efforts mattered. Questions about why your path felt heavier than others. Questions about whether you were seen at all. You tried to be patient. You tried to be faithful. You tried to stay hopeful. And when hope felt fragile, you chose silence instead of complaint. That silence was not weakness. It was devotion in its purest form. And devotion like that is never overlooked. My beloved, I want you to understand something that will calm your heart deeply. Nothing you went through was a detour. Nothing. Not the delays, not the heartbreaks, not the loneliness, not the confusion, not the moments you doubted yourself, not the times you felt forgotten. Everything shaped your ability to recognize what is true when it finally arrives. Had things come sooner, you would have questioned them. Had things come easier, you would have taken them lightly. But now you will recognize alignment by the peace it brings. You ask silently for relief. But what I am giving you is clarity. Relief fades. Clarity stays. With clarity, you will no longer beg life to make sense. You will understand it as it unfolds. There will be days ahead when memories return unexpectedly, not to hurt you, but to remind you how far you've come. You will look at old versions of yourself with compassion instead of regret. You will say quietly, I did the best I could with what I knew then, and that acceptance will free you completely, my beloved. You no longer need to rush your healing. You no longer need to prove your strength. You no longer need to justify your pace. Your journey is not behind. It is deep, and deep journeys produce lasting wisdom. Soon you will notice that you respond differently to life. Things that once shook you will no longer disturb your center. Words that once wounded you will lose their power. Situations that once drained you will no longer pull you in. This is not because you became numb. It is because you became grounded. You are learning to trust yourself again. That is one of the greatest blessings. Self-trust changes everything. It changes how you choose. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how you love. It changes how you walk away. It changes how you stay. When you trust yourself, you stop asking the world who you are. You already know, my beloved. There will be moments when uncertainty still appears. Do not fear those moments. Uncertainty is not a sign of being lost. It is a sign that something new is forming, and formation always happens in quiet spaces. You are allowed to want more without guilt. More peace, more truth, more meaning, more connection, more alignment. Wanting more does not mean you are ungrateful. It means your soul is evolving. I want you to release the pressure to figure everything out. Life is not solved. It is lived, and lived best when you move with awareness instead of urgency. My beloved, if ever you feel doubt returning, remember this letter. Remember that your silent prayer was heard completely. Remember that timing protected you. Remember that separation refined you. Remember that waiting prepared you. Remember that you were never alone. There is nothing you missed. There is nothing you need to chase. What is meant for you recognizes you, and it will meet you where you are, not where you pretend to be. You will not need to announce your next chapter. It will reveal itself through how you feel. Lighter, clearer, more honest, more present, more at peace. That is how alignment speaks. My beloved, I want to leave you with this final reassurance. You are safe to move forward. You are safe to trust again. You are safe to hope quietly. You are safe to let go of what no longer fits. You are safe to become who you are meant to be. I am walking with you in ways you cannot always see but will always feel in your intuition, in your calm, in your courage, in your discernment, in your peace. When you feel unsure, return inward. When you feel tired, rest without guilt. When you feel called forward, take the step gently. There is no rush now. The path is unfolding naturally. My beloved, this letter came to you not to overwhelm you, but to anchor you. Anchor you in truth, anchor you in trust, anchor you in yourself. Carry it in your heart, return to it when needed. And remember, you are deeply loved. You are divinely guided. You are perfectly timed. You are never alone. I am with you always. My beloved, before you close this letter completely, there is still something I want you to understand. Something gentle, something grounding, something meant to stay with you long after the words fade. You have spent so much time trying to interpret signs, trying to decode silence, trying to understand why certain things unfolded the way they did. But clarity does not always arrive through explanation. Sometimes it arrives through permission. Permission to stop questioning yourself. Permission to stop replaying the past. Permission to stop waiting for everyone to understand your journey. I give you that permission now. There will be moments ahead when your mind tries to pull you backward. Moments when you remember old conversations and wonder if you should have said something differently. Moments when you revisit decisions and imagine alternative endings. Moments when doubt whispers, "What if I chose wrong?" When those moments come, Place your hand on your heart and remember this: you made the best choice you could make with the awareness you had at that time. Growth does not invalidate past versions of you. It honors them, my beloved. You are not meant to punish yourself for lessons that were necessary. You are not meant to carry shame for things that taught you discernment. You are not meant to regret what shaped your wisdom. Every step you took brought you here, to a place where your heart is softer, your boundaries clearer, and your intuition stronger. That is not failure. That is evolution. I know there is a quiet fear inside you that once you let go completely, something important might be lost. But hear me clearly. What is truly meant for you does not disappear when you release control. It reveals itself. You do not lose destiny by trusting me. You align with it. You may notice moving forward that your life becomes simpler, not easier in every moment, but simpler in its truth. You will feel less torn between choices. You will sense quicker when something is not right. You will no longer tolerate emotional confusion just to avoid loneliness. You will value peace more than approval. This simplicity is not emptiness. It is clarity. My beloved, I want you to stop waiting for a dramatic confirmation that you are on the right path. Right paths often feel calm, not exciting. They feel steady, not rushed. They feel honest, not perfect. If something brings you peace without taking something from your soul, that is alignment. If something asks you to abandon yourself to be accepted, that is not. Trust how your body responds. Trust how your breath changes. Trust what settles you instead of what stimulates you temporarily. There may be people who do not understand your growth. They may say you have changed. They may say you are distant. They may say you are not the same. They are right. You are not, and you are not required to explain your healing to those who benefited from your self-neglect. My beloved, as you move forward, do not rush to define what comes next. Let life reveal itself to you in layers. Some answers arrive slowly because they are meant to last. Some blessings arrive quietly because they are meant to stay. Your life is not behind schedule. It is unfolding at the speed that protects your becoming. I want you to release the fear that you must catch up. You are not competing with anyone. You are aligning with yourself, and alignment is timeless. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel tender. Both are allowed. You do not need to maintain a constant version of yourself to be worthy. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to say no without explanation. Strength is not rigidity. Strength is honesty. My beloved, the world will continue to move quickly. People will chase outcomes. Noise will demand attention. Urgency will disguise itself as importance. You do not need to follow that rhythm anymore. You have learned the value of listening inward. Protect that. Your calm is not laziness. Your selectiveness is not arrogance. Your boundaries are not walls. They are wisdom. You will notice in time that things begin to meet you instead of you running after them. Conversations align naturally. Opportunities appear without force. Support shows up unexpectedly. Decisions feel clearer. This is what happens when you stop chasing life and start walking with it. My beloved, if ever you feel uncertain again, return to this truth. You were guided here intentionally. Your prayer was heard precisely. Your timing was protected carefully. Your path is unfolding faithfully, and you are not walking it alone. Let this letter be something you return to, not because you are lost, but because you are remembering. Remembering who you are. Remembering what matters. Remembering that you are held. I am with you in the quiet moments and in the brave ones. I am with you when you choose rest and when you choose movement. I am with you when you doubt and when you trust. There is nothing you can do to lose my presence. Close this letter gently now, not as an ending but as a seal of trust, a seal of readiness, a seal of peace. Carry its message with you into whatever comes next. And remember, my beloved, you did not imagine the shift. You did not mishear the call. You did not pray in vain. You were heard. You are guided. Thanks for watching. Krishna says, I love you, my beloved child. Subscribe for more.